Coming up, a special One Detroit American Black Journal Roadshow on workforce development. We'll take an in-depth look at the job outlook here in Detroit and across the state.
We're going to examine careers that are in high demand and explore the resources and programs that are helping put people to work. One Detroit and American Black Journal on the road starts now.
Support for this roadshow is provided by WALSH.
Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, craft-made in Merillat cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929.
Support also provided by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, a partner with communities where children come first. The Cynthia and Edsel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit Public TV. The Detroit Journalism Engagement Fund, and by
How does diversity bring energy to us all? At DTE Energy, we believe that it's the contributions of all that build great communities. As a company, we grow stronger by welcoming the unique perspectives of everyone. As community members, we support our state's broad culture and heritage. From working closely with women and minority-owned suppliers to embracing our local cultures, DTE Energy is powering diversity. The DTE Energy Foundation is a proud sponsor of Detroit Public Television.
Also brought to you by Ally, Business Leaders for Michigan, Nissan Foundation, and viewers like you. Thank you.
And welcome to a special One Detroit American Black Journal Roadshow. I'm Christy McDonald, along with Stephen Henderson and Nolan Finley. It's good to see both of you. We are at the Detroit Hispanic Development Corporation for a conversation about workforce development. It is all part of Detroit Public Television's commitment to examine the city's most important issues. And for the next hour, we're going to take a look at the types of careers that are out there, the challenges we face as a region to get people trained and educated for those jobs, and the programs in place that can really make a difference. All right, so let's start off with some numbers. When it comes to jobs, according to data from the state, the high demand occupations over the next 7 years include construction laborers, food prep workers and servers, personal care aides, and STEM careers. Those are jobs that focus on science, technology, engineering, and math. And every year, thousands of jobs open up in these industries, but finding qualified workers to fill them remains a challenge. All right, so I'm going to bring in Stephen and Nolan here. We talk a lot about how jobs and employment make us look as a region. Are we doing enough to make sure that we've got the education in place, and we've got the people in place for the jobs that need to be filled? Stephen, I'm going to start with you.
So, I mean, if you go back to 9, 10 years ago in the state, we were talking about this same thing, about how we needed all of these people to fill jobs that were coming up, and that there was a gap that between the skills that people have and the jobs that are going to be available. Fast forward, and that gap is wider. We are not catching up fast enough. We are not doing the things that we need to do to make sure that people are ready. And especially in the city of Detroit, when we talk about things like two Detroits and the gap between those who have and those who do not, it is an opportunity gap. It is a gap about preparation for the work that's out there. So, the short answer to your question is no, we're not doing enough. We do have to pivot a little harder toward that issue.
So if we have this widening gap that Stephen says, Nolan, what do we need to put in place? Are we doing the right partnerships with business? Are we doing the right partnerships with government, with schools, to be able to close that gap?
Well, are we doing enough? I think the answer is we're doing a whole lot more than we were doing a few years ago. And I think you have a lot of organizations going full bore. I mean, the mayor's got a workforce development department and a board, a commission that includes some of the top business leaders in this community. I think there's a heightened awareness, but we had a lot of making up to do. And, the schools, Detroit Public Schools, just now getting their feet on this issue and joining in. So we started behind, but I don't think there's a lack of effort. I think there's a lot of effort going on, and it's appropriate because there's an urgency about this. This is a moment of opportunity. In the Woodward Corridor alone, there are $8 to $10 billion worth of projects coming online. That's a lot of jobs and a lot of money, enough to rebuild the middle class in Detroit if we fill those jobs with trained Detroiters. And I do think we are going full bore, but man, it was a big gap to begin with.
Do you think that we are starting to finally put the partnerships in place that we need, and the conversations are finally happening, saying, okay, we're doing this here, we're doing this here. Let's start to join forces so we can make a larger impact, so we're not working in these silos.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that I think has changed in the last 10 years, as Nolan pointed out, is that everybody does seem to be aware, at least, of what's the problem is and what's needed. We've also started to see, I think, more investment in the city around the space of opportunity. A little later, we're going to talk about the Carpenters and Millwrights Union building a training center in the city for people to be able to get to. That's a huge, huge step, because when you talk about opportunity in the city, you have to talk about what's here now and not trying to get people all over Metro Detroit.
Yeah, and you also have to look at the openings and the opportunities that are here right now. But Nolan, you also have to look down the road. What are the jobs of the future? What are some of the different careers that we're going to be preparing kids for, and what opportunity that they may have?
And I think that shifts all the time. What we need to prepare our kids for is adapting and learning and being prepared to shift careers. It's not going to be like it was when I came in and worked 40 some years in the same place. They're going to work not only for
It's
different
50,
employers.
right?
Almost.
So how many years? We're not counting. We're not
I
keeping
didn't
track.
get my watch yet, but they're not going to work not only not in the same place, but not in the same careers. So I think the most important thing to teach them is to learn and adapt and be flexible.
Yeah, some critical thinking skills. All right, we've got a lot to talk about here tonight. We're going to start our coverage with a look at how the Detroit Public Schools Community District is preparing young people for the jobs of the future, what we're talking about. The district's career and technical education schools really give students a heads up on the competition for high-wage careers. One Detroit's Will Glover has the story on the skilled trades program at Randolph Career Technical Center.
Yeah, you did your wiring diagram? Okay. I am a journeyman and site wireman. I have been in for over 20 years. We need to go toolbox talk.
Felicia Wiseman has stories to tell. She's an electrician by trade and an instructor at Randolph Career Technical Center in Detroit.
What about you? You finished your paperwork? I love being out there in the field. I go toe to toe with any of those guys anytime, any day. But I said, I need to be in a position where I can help more people get into here, help more younger people realize how this is done, get more females into the trade, and this just kind of fell in my lap.
Numbers are hard to come by. In the Detroit area construction trades, perhaps 1 in 10 workers is a person of color. And women of color, a number so much smaller than that, in what looks like a wide open, well-compensated field.
Once we start showing them that, it's like, oh, I can make that much money? Oh yeah, but they're not gonna pay you that money to sit there on your cell phone, looking cute. So you gotta come there, you gotta work.
2 young women in attendance this semester, led by 2 female electricians. Wiseman and her teaching partner Monique Newell run the 2-year program, preparing students for apprenticeships with the Electricians Union. 10th grader Samaya Cook's been getting all A's. She's thinking hard about a career in the trades.
Every day 20 people retire from the trades, and that's 20 spots that they need jobs because only 1 person goes to fill that. There's a lot of space for us to come up and kind of work there.
So this opportunity that these children have here in Detroit is totally unique because there's nowhere in the country. You don't get this kind of knowledge base till you go to the community colleges or to the union hall to an apprenticeship.
Well, for this and for really any of the trades, the kids, they need to be serious about their math classes. I-57.
The game? Math Bingo, intended to sharpen skills.
You have to calculate what type of wire you need or for to hold the electricity. I would do math games like that.
You're on a job site. Your phone's dead. You don't have a calculator. How are you going to get your measurements? Okay?
Flat, nice and smooth, right?
Fiancée Foster isn't sure about her career, but now she knows what it takes to do this job.
You have to be precise with everything, no errors, and you have to be quick about it.
There's definitely not enough women in here. And I'm always reaching out to females, and you get the same thing. Oh, it's a dirty job. Oh, it's too hard. Oh, I can't do it. I'm like, yeah, you're dirty. Yeah, it's a hard job, but you know what? You got enough money that every weekend you can get your hair did, you can get your nails did, you can go to the spa, you can do whatever you want to. So, just take advantage of the opportunities.
and you have the training and you have a career, Randolph really is a special place. Joining me now is Dr. Nikolai Vitti. He is the superintendent of the Detroit Public Schools Community District. It's good to see you. Also with me is Nicole Sherrod-Freeman. She's the executive director of Detroit's Office of Workforce Development. Hi, Nicole.
Hi.
And Veronica Sanchez-Peavy. She is the senior assistant vice president for adult services at SARE Metro Detroit. Thank you all for being with us tonight. This really starts off a large conversation about where we are. And Nicole, I'm wondering if you can kind of set the stage for us right now in terms of what are some of the barriers that we're seeing to filling jobs and keeping people employed in the city of Detroit and what you're working on.
Yeah, such important questions. So, I will tell you, FCA has given us incredible insight into what Detroiters are facing and the hard questions that employers are wrestling with. And so we had more than 37,000 Detroiters indicate interest in FCA jobs. And while we see some of the more typical barriers that we've talked about a lot in this community, transportation, childcare, ability to complete a GED or adult education, we are also seeing sort of the next level of barriers that we need to solve for. And so work readiness has taken on entirely new meaning, because at the same time that we're closing the gaps for Detroiters, employers have higher expectations. And so as they're articulating to us the kinds of skills they expect job seekers to come to the table with, it's helping us understand just how deep the gap is.
So what kind of programs does Detroit have right now to be able to help? You said 37,000 people interested in jobs.
Yeah. So we have always provided a set of core services. I mean, the legislation and federal funding that we use mandates that we provide, a certain level of access for job seekers. And so, help building resumes. And we work with our partners like SARE Metro and certainly the district on interviewing skills and work readiness and having the right attire. But what we've put in place for employers now is a different set of strategies that really helps us advance what they've asked us to deliver on. And so with FCA, we did a 90-minute, 2-hour readiness event for every Detroiter who was interested before they even get to the application process. And then on the other side of this process, we're going to run 2-week readiness courses that are specifically designed for the employer. That's one of the key differences in the system now versus, 5 years or so ago.
When we look at filling the jobs that are there right now and also looking towards some of the jobs of the future, so much goes hand in hand with education and how we're going to be able to educate our kids. When you take a look at the opportunity that kids have, do you think that they know what's out there for them? Are they preparing more than they used to? Or is it really up to the district to say, this is what is out there and this is where we can get you, if you're not on one track, then we can help you discover another track, or maybe you can then jump to something else that you didn't know existed?
I think Detroit has a opportunity gap, not a talent gap. Our children are ready. And they're capable. They just need the exposure, the confidence, and the skills to be successful after high school. So the way that we think about this is that high school and really the K-12 experience should be a springboard to college or the world of work, and comfortable with allowing those both pathways to flourish. So our responsibility as a school district is, one, to make sure students have stronger skills in literacy and math, and I think most recently our standardized test scores at the state level demonstrate we're moving in that direction. But beyond that, we have to provide students with the opportunities outside of school, and I think that's why the latest partnership work with the city, along with businesses, demonstrate the willingness to invest in the school system where children are at on a consistent basis and begin to expose them to those career opportunities beyond that. Our budget alone would never allow for the redevelopment of Randolph to happen, or Breithoff, and eventually go lightly in the work we're doing with FCA at Southeastern, for example. When businesses invest in the infrastructure with the right equipment and the right classroom structure, we have the human capital from a teacher perspective to offer those opportunities, so that it becomes an exposure situation, but also a leverage and a springboard to work. And we have to be comfortable with the difference between that pathway to college and the pathway to a career, because that initial pathway to career may end up being later a pathway to college. That's why our dual enrollment work is so important. We believe the high school level students can take college courses at the high school level and even connect that to some of the industry certification areas, so that you're actually getting the college experience to do enrollment, but also the industry exposure as well.
Talk to me a little bit about Randolph. We saw in that story previously, just how is enrollment up? I mean, and what are some of the students' experiences?
Enrollment continues to go up every year. We're over 260 right now, and it's growing even this year. It's about exposure. It goes back to your earlier question, do students know these opportunities exist? Many don't.
And do people make assumptions
Oh,
about,
yeah.
about career tech?
Absolutely. That's why we're trying to go to the K-8s and even to the elementary schools for walkthroughs at Randolph, so students can know what's available to them, and just to create that greater exposure. But the investment in the infrastructure is leading to a different conversation, in that what you see in Detroit right now with our industry certification programs, our CTE programs, are unique in the region. You would have to go much farther than the Detroit metro area to see that kind of investment in those kind of buildings. So now it's just creating awareness and better partnership with businesses beyond what we've already seen happen to create that direct pipeline to the workplace, or college with those more experience to then go back to the workplace.
Veronica, with Sarah Metro, you're doing a lot of work with youth, but you're also doing a lot of work, obviously, with your programs with adults. What are some of the people telling you when they're saying, look, I've got these skills, or this is what I'd like to do, but I don't know where to go next? How are you able to help them?
Well, we are connected to Detroit at Work Career Centers in addition to some of the programming we have in-house. And really it's about connecting them to not just the training, but the supports that they need. We really need to wrap our arms around our Detroiters to ensure that we're addressing the barriers. Nicole mentioned transportation, childcare, but we're also seeing mental health issues, drug use, and those that have a criminal background.
You know, Nicole, we talked a little bit earlier with Nolan and Stephen about that gap. Do you believe the gap is widening, and do you believe that we have the tools in place to start to close the gap?
Yeah, so I don't know if I believe the gap is widening. I believe we're understanding the gap better. I believe we have better data and better insights and analytics because of that data. So I don't know if the gap is any wider than it has been, although certainly, approving recreational marijuana use doesn't help any of us, in getting out a message that says if it's illegal at the federal level and employers don't support it, then you don't get a job. And so
I was just going to say,
that's a struggle.
how is that going to change what you think the job landscape is going to be in the next year or so here?
Yeah, so I will tell you, I think that two things are happening. So we are certainly doing our work in partnership with the district as we talk to youth, and in partnership with SARE and Goodwill and many others on telling people very clearly that smoking marijuana is a non-starter for so many jobs and careers. Now, there are some careers and jobs where there is no background testing and no one really cares. But for the construction growth and manufacturing growth that we're seeing in the city, it's still a significant barrier.
Did you want to jump in on that? Oh,
I think
you're like,
Nicole said it well.
Veronica, let me ask you this. When in terms of getting people ready for jobs and meeting them where they're at, do you have people coming to you and asking for, is there another place where we can go for skills, or is there something that I can try to get myself back into school? What are you hearing most from people?
We're hearing they want opportunity. So when they walk to the door, we're looking at the whole landscape, whether it's a Randolph opportunity or something in-house, like with their youth build program for the young adults, or, it's going to Focus Hope for some additional manufacturing training. So we try to meet them, yes, where they are, and try to direct them to, based on the assessment, the career coaching, and the supports that we provide, the right path for them.
How important has the partnerships been? I mean, as we look across this panel here, and people we're going to be talking to later on in the show, in aligning the same goals together, so you're now in the same concert of the same direction.
Definitely important. I mean, we have to, as RTVC, we have to leverage our resources right now, and we can't do it alone. So the fact that, service providers are at the same table with the mayor's office, with, Detroit Public School District, it's important to have a seamless process, a seamless referral system for our customers walking through the door.
Dr. Vitti, give me a sense of a 5-year plan for you in terms of when you talk about kids and their career readiness, or where they want to go beyond high school.
Well, as I said earlier, I think at the elementary level is critical to develop the skills that can propel a student to go in any direction that they're interested in. That's why that solid literacy and math foundation is key. But beyond that, to start to build the critical thinking skills, the ability to work in groups, to problem solve, to be adaptable, the things that we heard earlier today. that's key. So that's I think only the school district can do that, coupled with partnership with families and the greater community. But then after that, the business investment is critical because we're able to invest in new facilities, new equipment, recruit teachers to come in to do this work, and that can become then internship opportunities for students, externships for teachers. So I think our key is as a school system, let's build the skills, the interest level, and then with that business investment and the city partnership, we're now seeing that acceleration with the actual work skill experience. And I think in the future, in the next couple of years, you're going to see students that are better prepared, more confident, thinking more out of the box. That's why I think even things like investing in art and music were critical to expand that innovative thinking, creative thinking that we're doing at the elementary, middle school
You got
level.
those programs up and running this year.
Yeah,
right?
every school now has a music or an art program, and you might not think that is a connection necessarily to STEM, but it's really STEAM, adding the A to the arts, to go beyond just science and math. So that's what I think we're doing differently. And then when businesses are willing to invest, we're responding much in a more nimble way to make things happen, where in the past, things got sometimes fell off the table with getting things done on time. And you just go to Randolph and Brightoff and see the way we turned around that investment in facilities and now seeing an increase in enrollment.
Nicole, I'm going to let you have the last word on this in terms of how this makes us look as a region and the strength of our state in terms of getting people to work and getting them trained for the job opportunities that we have right now, what impact that has on us as a state.
Oh, sure. So I want to go back to your point about partnerships because I think it leads into the point you're raising. So you have DPSCD, the city, our partners represented here, nonprofits, and others in the room. Like this is a huge lift. And there's no other place in the country that is undertaking this in the way that the Mayor's Workforce Development Board and partners like DTE and Strategic Staffing Solutions, the CEO Regional Council, like you just won't see a set of partnerships like this anywhere else in the nation. And so that leads us to a point where we are much better positioned regionally and nationally to compete with other areas across the nation for large-scale business. So FCA chose to bring their business here because we have the partnerships that can deliver the workforce talent that they need.
All right, thanks to all of you for joining me. All right, we're going to send it over to Nolan.
Well, thanks, Christy. DTE Energy is helping put people to work in a new partnership with the Michigan Department of Corrections. 24 inmates at Parnell Correctional Facility in Jackson are learning how to trim trees. The training program will help fill a critical shortage of skilled tree trimmers and provide stable employment for the returning citizens. Take a look.
The reentry program is to get our offenders prepared to go back out and transition into the community. With the tree trimming program, that's going to create jobs for these individuals. They can do their job training, their job skill training while they're here with us.
Just seeing the transition in the guys and where they started and where they're at now is really enlightening.
You finish up in the line clearance program at about $27 once you're through that.
Right now.
So it's a really good job. But then you can step from there into learning more and higher paying positions, and over time you go from a really solid middle class job to a really fine living, as long as you keep learning and keep growing.
This is a Blake's hitch. It's a friction knot. Slides up easy, doesn't come down.
There's guys that look in the mirror and address the inner parts of, the what we did, the why we did them. But to have something for some work for our hands to do when we get out, that is a beautiful thing. Not only is it a program guys can stay busy and stay busy constructively, there's opportunity at the end of it.
This program is meant for these guys to achieve a goal for themselves. The means they didn't have before. They didn't have the trades. So this course is going to teach them a new trade to be able to provide for not only themselves, but their family that they got for them. So they don't have to fall back into the old ways. So this is a whole new outlook that they got.
Joining me now are Jerry Anderson, Executive Chairman of DTE Energy, Portia Robeson, CEO of Focus Hope, and Angela Reyes, Executive Director of Detroit Hispanic Development Corporation. Welcome.
Well, thanks.
Thank you all for being here. We know in Detroit there are a lot of jobs, and there are a lot of people who need jobs. In between those two groups are a lot of barriers, and we're going to talk on this panel about what those barriers look like and how we tear them down. And Jerry, probably no group faces more barriers to re-entering the workforce or joining the workforce than returning citizens, released inmates. And this tree trimming program, we just talked about one effort to find a place for these folks, because we know if folks are working, returning citizens are working, if they know they've got a chance at a job before they get out of prison, it focuses them more, and it improves sort of the conditions in the prison, motivates them. But for employers, there's a bit of a risk here, or at least there's a perceived risk. Why is DTE Energy taking that risk?
So I had the same perceived risk that everybody does when you deal with returning citizens. But look, this is a chance to pair up a business need with a really critical social problem. And I began to hear from CEOs, generally of small companies, that I'm hiring returning citizens and they're some of my best employees. And then I ran into the leadership of Johns Hopkins Hospital, big institution in Baltimore, who's been hiring thousands of returning citizens over decades. And I invited them to DTE to lay it out for us, and they said the same thing. These will be among your best employees because they're looking for a second lease on life. And so we decided to sort of prove the case for ourselves, and over the last few years have hired in about 50 returning citizens, got a 90% retention rate. And so we decided it was time to up our game. And as we were thinking that, the Department of Corrections and we crossed, and we decided to put the first training facility by a business within the walls of prison, the Parnell Correctional Facility or the Jackson Prison. So we'll have classes of about 25 going through. They'll be in class for 4 or 5 months. And when they come out, they will join the union and head into the journeyman program to become first a line clearance tree trimmer and hopefully then a lineman.
Of course, you all have are in the worker training business. Right. Should this kind of training start, or could it start well before the release date? Could they come out of prison ready to work if we had more forward-looking policies?
Yeah, I absolutely think so. I mean, I think there are opportunities that you can develop in prison so that when people come out, they know exactly what they're going to do next, and they know that they are going to have a job after they complete the program. And I know it cuts down on recidivism. So what we want to see is people who don't return to prison because they have a way of making a legal living wage, right? And so this is an opportunity to do that. And I think there are ways in which, in partnership with the Department of Corrections, you can start to develop those programs inside of the prison walls.
You know, one of the brutal realities that I've learned of is that in Michigan, we have about 8,000 or 9,000 people leaving our prisons each year to reintegrate. 60% of them end up unemployed. And of the 60%, a third end up with a return ticket back to prison. But if you're part of the 40%, the recidivism rate is 2%. We have got to get people job opportunities.
So Jerry, as an employer looking at this, are there policies the state could put in place to make it easier for you to hire returning citizens? I'm thinking about liability protections and other measures.
I give the state and the Department of Corrections a lot of credit. They've started these vocational villages within the prisons. I think what we're doing as a company is really an experiment with them to try to figure out how to make it work, how to let us come right in there and train them up for work that we vitally need. So we'll all learn together, but then we need to scale it up. These vocational villages today are training about 600 returning citizens, people about to be paroled. We need to take it up to match the 9,000 that are leaving our facilities.
Ms. Reyes, these 9,000 folks are coming back to neighborhoods, coming back to communities. In terms of the impact on communities, it makes a huge difference if these folks have something to do when they arrive back home.
Absolutely. I don't think there's anything more important than a job in stabilizing people coming home from prison, because without that, they really don't have much of a future or hope. And it's really easy. People slide back very quickly into an old lifestyle because they have to survive. They have to eat. They have many times families that they have to support. They come back with a lot of bills, sometimes child support that they have to pay, tickets that have to be paid. And if they don't have a legal way of paying those things off and earning a living, they will end up right back where they were before.
So we started talking about the barriers between jobs and workers. And again, we know There are plenty of jobs, plenty of people who want them. But when you look at Detroit and the ravages of poverty, the impact poverty has had on this community, it's not as simple as saying, well, we got a worker, we got a job, let's plug them in. A lot of people have not worked ever. Maybe they're from families who it's been generations since people have worked. That ability to go out and actually participate in the job hunting process is perhaps more limited than it is in other communities. How do you knock that barrier down, Portia?
Well, I think we see the same host of barriers that we've talked about before. Transportation, childcare, those kind of issues. And so what we've decided at Focus Hope is, one, we want to be an employer-led workforce organization, which means that we come to somebody like Jerry and we say, how many people do you need? Before we start the training program, before we develop the curriculum, we work in concert with that employer. So first of all, we know when somebody comes to the door that they're going to have a job if they commit to coming to Focus Hope and commit to the class schedule, right? But then we know that we have to do our wraparound services. So in addition to some of those obvious things, clothing closets and bus tickets and childcare that fortunately at Focus Hope we're able to provide through some of our other opportunities and programs that we do, we also look at financial literacy. We also look at how do we teach somebody that cashing your check at the party store is not the way that you want to, start your career, that you want to figure out how to have a bank account and what's going to actually be in that bank account or on that check when you actually get that check, right? Because so many people, as you said, have not had that experience. And so I think that's one of the barriers that we have to deal with. The other thing is really letting people know what opportunities are there. I think for the last 10 or so years, we've talked only about being successful if you go to college. Yeah. And that is not the truth. I mean, that simply is not the truth. And we've got to expose people to the opportunities that are there if you're not going to be a person who goes to college. We'd certainly like for everyone to go if that's their choice, if they can afford it. But certainly there are ways in which you can make a good middle class living if you don't. And we want to expose them early enough on. And I guess the barrier that we get rid of there is the exposure piece, that sometimes the barrier is just that they don't know what the opportunity is.
Right. And Ms. Reyes, you must see that in your community, people haven't worked in a long time, or perhaps have never worked, not really understanding what it takes to go out, fill out an application, go through an interview. That must be terrifying.
Yeah, especially people who have been inside for a very long time. Think of the technology that has changed in the past 10, 15 years. So you have people who come out who don't know how to use a cell phone. We've had one individual who told us he sat in front of his TV at home by himself all day because he didn't know how to use the remote control, because the remote control is very high tech nowadays. So just knowing how to use technology, how to use a cell phone, how to use a computer, those are all very strange things to people who have been not exposed to those things for many, many years. And then there's other issues like family reunification, because their kids have grown up in the meantime. Previous partners have moved on. So learning how to deal with all of those different changes, how do you reintegrate into your family even, is a big deal for a lot of folks.
So I want to talk now about pot. Michigan legalized recreational marijuana a year ago, starting to be implemented. It will be fully so in just a short time. You look at Colorado, the struggles the employers are having, trying to find workers who can pass a drug test. Jerry, you're an employer. At some point, our employer is going to have to say, we're just going to ignore marijuana use, that it's going to become part of the fabric of our community and what we have to expect as employers.
That might be a tough one for us. We have people who run nuclear power plants. We have people who are up near high voltage lines on a daily basis or around powerful rotating equipment. You've got to have your wits about you, or you're literally putting your life at risk. So I think there are going to be occupations where letting go of drug testing is going to be really hard to do. Now, there may be other occupations where they do, where those safety issues are less critical, but we've certainly got jobs where that won't be the case.
But Portia, these drug tests have become almost routine for any job you go out for. Are they obsolete now in a society that has embraced marijuana use?
I don't think they're obsolete by any stretch of the imagination. I think what Jerry said is absolutely true. It's going to depend on the job that you're applying for. It's not going to be across the board anymore. And I think we're going to at some point see it treated like alcohol. If we see people coming on the job and they look like they're under the effects of alcohol, they're drunk on the job, then we immediately pull them from that job and send them home or do whatever we have to do to get them some help with that. And we're going to have to sort of start to learn about the effects of marijuana and what we should be looking for. But I definitely think that the drug testing is always going to be in place for some of those jobs where you are not only a threat to yourself, but a threat to others if you're operating that kind of machinery under the influence of marijuana.
Ms. Reyes, you see people who don't want to go through that job application process because they're worried about marijuana testing and drug testing.
Unfortunately, a lot of people, if you ask them if they use drugs, will tell you no. And then you say, do you smoke marijuana? And they'll say yes. Because they don't consider it to be a drug because it's in such wide use. But I agree with Portia is that it's because marijuana stays in your system much longer than like alcohol, you can test positive even if you're not under the influence at the time. So I think we're going to have to figure out some different ways of figuring out if somebody is using or not or under the influence.
I talked earlier in the day with Nicole Sherrod-Freeman of the Detroit Workforce Development Office, and she was on the earlier panel, and she talked about the opportunities that are coming out of FCA and all those workers who aren't going to get a job, perhaps as many as 50,000 applicants for 5,000 jobs, and the effort underway to put them into a talent pool to sort of catalog them, understand their skills, and what they need to do to get ready for the next time they apply. How important is that going to be for employers who are coming in here looking for workers?
Well, I think for us at Focus Hope, we did the same, a similar type of thing with Flexingate. When Flexingate opened, we brought in a lot of people. We trained them for production worker jobs and labor jobs at Flexingate, and then the numbers, they had what they needed. And so we still had a number of people on our list that had applied and wanted to work at Flexingate. What we've tried to do now is we've reached out to them and said, listen, that didn't work out for you, but we've got truck driving programs, we've got machinist programs, we've got IT programs. Are you interested in any of those? Let's have you come back in. Let's test you for that. And a lot of times what you'll find is people just want a job, they want to work. So they're not so wed to where they were going to work as much as they are wed to the idea that they're going to get a good paying job.
Jerry, having that pool that you can draw from is going to make a big difference, isn't it?
It certainly helps. We're making progress, but we've got a ways yet to go in Detroit in workforce engagement. But I'll tell you, one of the things I think will help is the Detroit Regional Partnership, the new economic development organization, has explicitly put out a goal that they call either deep prosperity or inclusive development, which means we're going to target pulling in companies that bring jobs at all levels of the job level.
We're going to have to leave it right there. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now, over to Stephen.
The Michigan Regional Council of Carpenters and Millwrights will break ground soon on a $30 million skilled trades training center on Detroit's west side. The expanded facility is going to give thousands of Detroiters access to free training that pays wages and benefits while they learn. One Detroit's Will Glover shows us how the Carpenters Apprenticeship Program is addressing a worker shortage and changing lives.
One day I sat back on my bunk and I was thinking to myself, what am I going to be in 5 years? You know, I got kids. How will I be able to raise them? I can't keep going to the streets because that's just going to keep me away from them.
28-year-old Detroiter Tykees Banks just started as a carpenter's apprentice. His last gig, the Department of Corrections. 3 years for selling drugs.
I was ready to work the moment they walked me out to prison. I took this opportunity and I never looked back.
Mr. Banks gave me a phone call. He sounded extremely excited to have the opportunity to get a job, so we signed him up, and here he is today.
Pontiac Ceiling and Partition is finishing up a new building in Novi.
We did the exterior framing and sheathing and started doing the interior partitions, the drywall, basically from the ground up.
Banks is here because the Michigan Council of Carpenters and Millwrights worked with the Corrections Department to create a new training program behind bars. Juan Ortiz is a part of that.
When I met Juan Ortiz, he came and spoke to us, and everything that he was saying, I had been in his shoes, he'd been in mine. I listened to him, and I just stuck with it. And I gave him a call the first morning I walked out of there. Pretty much wrapped up here.
Ortiz, another Detroiter, did time himself a couple decades ago. Then he hung drywall, moved up the ranks. Now he's advocating for the union and other returning citizens.
We're all out educating, schooling people on our trade, trying to recruit people into our trade, and we still can't find the people. So we need people, they're not there.
People, they need to be trained on the job and in the classroom.
Volume of a cylinder, the formula is V equals.
This class covers math at the trade union's office in Ferndale. It's the front end of the pipeline for returning citizens into the trades. Ishard Odin is one. Odin served 20 years in prison. He too connected with Ortiz.
Well, I'm doing residential construction right now, but I really want to make more money. So I believe the money is in commercial. And it's probably less taxing on your body than residential. So, I'm 40 now.
We've had like 20, 25 guys come out of prison and come through us that are waiting to get in. Because the classes only start every so many semesters. So there's guys still waiting to get into the school.
Soon they'll have more room in a new building, breaking ground next spring in a West Side Detroit neighborhood.
We're going to get a brand new school that we're going to be able to take pride in because the Shard's going to help build it.
Right.
And we're going to get to see it get built by Detroiters in Detroit. And we're going to take pride in that. We're going to have pride.
More classrooms means more people to work. Meanwhile, Ortiz needs more employers like Dave Tomlinson.
I feel like we're on the forefront of this program and working with it, and we're willing to take that risk, and I think it's going to pay off for us.
When guys are trying to help you as much as you want to help yourself, you can become the person I am today. Right now, I'm just happy to be home, working, making a good living, and staying out of trouble.
I'm joined now by Tom Lutz, who's Executive Secretary and Treasurer of the Michigan Regional Council of Carpenters and Millwrights, Rick Pruce, who is Detroit Business Agent for the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers Local 58, and John Perkins, a carpenter apprentice with Local 687. Thanks, all of you, for being here. Thank you. So, Tom, I want to start with you. Of course, we saw in the clip there this center that's being built on the west side of Detroit. We should also mention that it's being built in the neighborhood where I was born and where I operate a nonprofit community and literary arts center now. So there's nobody more excited about what you're doing than me. Talk about why you're building this training center where you are, why you're moving to the city of Detroit, and what kind of opportunity that really opens up for Detroiters.
Well, for us, the opportunity presented itself as construction is just, as you look around every day, you see what's happening in the city. We're rebuilding. But as important as rebuilding the city that we live in is, it's important that we build the lives of the people that build those buildings. And so for us, because we had some antiquated infrastructure, we have a facility in Warren right now, and we have a facility in Ferndale, both in need of expansion opportunities. And we worked closely with the city of Detroit, community groups, contractor associations, and our contracting partners to select this facility, this site, to make a difference where it needs it most. We're building there because that's where the men and women that'll be in the skilled trades are going to come from.
And talk about the kinds of things you're doing beyond just building the training center. I mean, one of the great things that I've learned about you guys since this project kicked off is you're not just building a building. You're not just creating a training center. You're really digging into the challenges that we have in that area.
So like many other jobs, we have some hurdles to overcome, some barriers. And so those include preparation. And so as an organization, the United Brotherhood of Carpenters and Joiner, which is the parent organization of the Michigan Regional Council, created a curriculum designed to prepare students to succeed in skilled trades construction programs. And we implement that over 108 different high schools and ISDs around this state, but no more so than this Tri-County area right here in Detroit, preparing people to speak the vernacular that we use every day in our apprenticeship schools, to give them a greater opportunity to succeed. That's just one of the many things that we do. We create that curriculum from soft skills. Many careers, and many people don't even know all of the trades that we represent. From floor coverers, pile drivers, and divers, to millwrights, commercial and residential carpenters. all of these opportunities exist. And as you've heard many times here already tonight, it's exposure is the number one opportunity to increase our intake. So those are the reasons that we do it, and we're blessed to have good community partners to do that with.
Rick, you come at this kind of from a different angle, from the sense of businesses, what they need and how they work with training opportunities to get Detroiters trained up for these jobs. Give us an overall picture of how we're doing in Detroit with skilled trades and making sure people are ready.
It's an exciting time to be in Detroit. I think we have a once in a generation opportunity to really make an impact here. I came in 23 years ago. I came in, and at that time we're building Ford Field, Comerica Park, and we have another one of those big opportunities of bringing in a lot of trades, men and women. And I think in the last, you saw Randolph as one of our feeder programs that we helped bring back from being mothballed, and really showing, that if I keep on saying exposure, you got to get those younger kids. High school is great, but if we could get into the grade schools to teach and to show those young minds that there's something else out there, it's very gratifying. You ask anybody in the trades, they say, this is the greatest decision I ever made. Changed my life. The other piece that we're trying to really do is a pre-apprentice. So before that was a word that was not in our nomenclature. We didn't use that word very often. And now it's being used a lot more. And I think the reason why is because we're seeing that exposure. You get to see firsthand before you get to test drive it before you have to buy it. And these programs, just like Tom had said, we pay for all this training. So IBEW, Local 58, we've been here for over 100 years. We're actually right across the street.
Right across the street.
Yeah, we've built a zero net energy center, almost $6 million that we put into this to really showcase green technology. So it's cool to be green. And then we think, when I go to the schools and I talk to the kids, we talk about who wants to be an electrician. Nobody will raise their hand, the kids. But when you say how many people are interested in green technology, almost the entire class of kids say, I want to go into green technology. So it's fashionable, it's cool, it's something that we see that when we promote it right and we talk the language, like Tom was saying, we talk the talk and we communicate on the level of the people that we're talking to, I think we got a better result.
John, yours is one of my favorite stories around the city about opportunity and how to get to it. Tell us how you ended up being an apprentice carpenter.
Yes. So one of the key words that I keep hearing tonight is the exposure. So I was exposed at an early age. My father was a carpenter, actually. So building clubhouses and renovating his homes that he owned at the age of 12. Every child wants to be like his father growing up. So that's where the passion and the drive came from. Once I got of age to actually pursue a career of my choice, which is carpentry, I actually went through a pre-apprenticeship program. And that's how I was exposed to the union as a whole. I remember going into the program not knowing the logistics of, step one and step two. All I knew was if I step foot in this door, I'm gonna come out a carpenter. If I step foot in this door, I'm gonna pursue the dream that, I will be like my father.
Yeah.
And ever since then, 4 years later, I am fourth year apprentice.
I was gonna say, you're really, really close right now.
I
right?
have exactly one more day, and I'll be.
I didn't know you were that close.
Absolutely. So long time coming for sure. But nevertheless, it was a dream come true. It's so much of a dream that when I look around the city and I see other young folks that are interested in pursuing a career in the construction industry, that exposure piece that I was referring to earlier, just reaching out to just one. If I can have a room full of 10, if I can reach out to one and say, hey, here's an opportunity for you, because a lot of our children nowadays, they want the opportunity. They just lack the exposure on how to get it. So if I have a room full of 10, if I can reach out to one, my goal is to have that one have a room full of 10 and reach out to two and keep that positive domino effect going.
What do you hope to do after tomorrow, I guess?
After tomorrow, so well, continue on this beautiful trade of mine. Keep paying it forward to the next generation, because what I know is we're strong in numbers. So with that being said, like someone said earlier, every year there's retirement, right? So 20 to 25 journeymen every year. So there's a gap. So my goal is not to stop today, not to stop tomorrow, but continue on reaching out to pre-apprenticeship programs, high school students, career fairs. I actually started an apprenticeship mentor committee with Local 687 that actually acts as a support group system for existing apprentices and new apprentices coming in to collaborate together to continue that positive domino effect so we can grow our organization so we can continue building the city of Detroit.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. That's such a great story.
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely.
Tom, can you talk about how you hope to reach out to Detroiters who are maybe a little more disconnected than people like John? I mean, John's dad was a carpenter. He understood all of this. What are some of the ways when you move into the city that you get to populations that just aren't used to even thinking in this space?
Yes, so local community partners obviously are the conduit we have today. But we are already doing this outreach. We are already running career fairs. This year, we partnered with Michigan Works and SEMCA and a number of other organizations to bring 43 individual young people ranging from 9th to 12th grade and gave them an opportunity to do our work, to learn in our building. It's not a new city of Detroit yet, but it soon will be. But what we were able to do is allow them the opportunity to see and what it is, feel what it is to touch and work with your hands.
Yeah.
And bring some of that understanding of the honor that we should take home. We should be proud of that, and we need to build that back in our communities. And the way that we do that is individually through communication and relationships, one person at a time. And that's how we have to build our brotherhood, and that's how we have to support one another. We're doing it today, and we're going to be proud to do it into the future.
Yeah, and as you said, you guys are already at work doing this before the center is even, I mean, you haven't even broken ground on the center yet. You're already thinking about this.
Well, as carpenters, we understand a lot about a good foundation. So we don't want to open the doors and wonder where the people are. We're doing that work with our community partners already today.
Yeah. Thanks for being here. And now over to Christy.
All right, thanks, Stephen. Great conversation. You know, just like the skilled trades, technology is a high demand industry. However, women make up less than 25% of STEM workers. Well, we met up with Detroiter Brittany Johnson. She's a former mortgage banker who is now a software engineer. And she's also an instructor for Sisters Code, an organization that empowers women to explore the world of technology. Take a look.
It's been pretty cool being able to help other women and show them that you can do it. Because it's always this thing about, we never know if it's for us if we don't see anybody representing us in that field. Like even for me, like with the whole engineering thing, it's like I've never had any examples of any African American, let alone woman, being a software engineer. Like I think my first taste of software engineering was the Facebook movie, which were all Caucasian males.
If your function is correct, when you click rock, it should alert that you chose rock.
I was used to being immersed in like this culture of tech because in Atlanta you find what you call meetups. Basically, it'd be like 3 or 4 tech meetups a day where I can go learn a new programming language, I can go meet people in the industry, I can go listen to like panel talks and see like as a woman what I should be getting paid. There's so much more to learn outside of just the boot camp itself. So when I came here, I was looking to continue that same education for myself, and I couldn't find any organization or anything to help with until I actually came across Sisters Code.
It's at the computer. Now we're doing our LSIP as far as our what we chose as far as games.
You didn't see an African American person or a woman, you know, coding and making these applications. So it's kind of like that imposter syndrome of like, can I do this? Like, is this really what we're supposed to be doing? And so being able to do that and then also be an example for these women has been amazing.
So the library, and then all these books. Exactly. So you got like React, you got jQuery.
Even though I've had this role for it'll be a year on May 14th, just continue to shake that imposter syndrome and know that I do belong is something that's important. And I think what fulfills that for me too, what reassures and confirms it for me is I'm able to go instruct at Sisters Code or able to go teach children how to code or have my godson sit down and he thinks I am Mark Zuckerberg because he's like, I can make a video game with you, let's do it, I want to do it. And so like, I got him into coding and I brought him to work with me for Bring Your Kid to Work Today, which he's not technically my kid, he's my godson. But when they asked the children what they wanted to be, he said a computer programmer, which like blew me away. So kind of let me know that he's listening and he does understand what we're doing and what's going on. So like, to me, I think that reassures for me that I am where I belong.
Well, what a great program, and we really had some good conversation here. That is going to do it for this special One Detroit American Black Journal Roadshow on workforce development. Thanks so much for watching.
Our thanks to the Detroit Hispanic Development Corporation for being our host, and to the audience members who joined us for this very important conversation.
We will continue to bring you more in-depth coverage of the issues that matter to our community. Just go to DetroitPBS.org for all of the stories that we are working on.
And as always, you can connect with us on Facebook and on Twitter. We'll see you next time.
Support for this roadshow is provided by WALSH.
Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, craft-made in Merillat cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929.
Support also provided by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, a partner with communities where children come first. The Cynthia and Edsel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit Public TV, the Detroit Journalism Engagement Fund, and by
How does diversity bring energy to us all? At DTE Energy, we believe that it's the contributions of all that build great communities. As a company, we grow stronger by welcoming the unique perspectives of everyone. As community members, we support our state's broad culture and heritage. From working closely with women and minority-owned suppliers to embracing our local cultures, DTE Energy is powering diversity. The DTE Energy Foundation is a proud sponsor of Detroit Public Television.
Also brought to you by Ally, Business Leaders for Michigan, Nissan Foundation, and viewers like you. Thank you.